Good afternoon, everyone. Hello and welcome. Welcome to this First Friday presentation. And so this is a program that the college partners with the Cedars to present every month so that our faculty and staff have the opportunity to share from their own disciplines. And so today we are overjoyed to welcome a larger group because we will be hearing from Dr. Becki Bowman and her students in the McPherson College communication major who are sharing their legacy projects. And you will recognize some of the people that these students have been sharing their time with and will be telling you more about. This is always a favorite program during the spring, and so we're very grateful that Becki and others have partnered with the First Fridays program so that we can do this together. So once again, welcome to our students who are sharing their legacy project.
Welcome. It is so exciting to feel the energy in this room and to see so many faces as we present the work that these students have worked on so hard this semester. Before I tell you a little more about the project, I'd like quickly, so that I don't forget, to introduce my colleagues who are here and also part of the communication department. Julia Largent is an assistant professor of communication, and Nathan Pollard is an assistant professor of digital media, and they have also worked hard to help these students through their curriculum and programs and to get ready for today. We allow you for letting us use this First Friday program to present these senior projects. I know usually you get to hear from one of the faculty from the college, and today instead we get to hear from the students. And not just to hear from them about their own research, which it is, but you get to hear about some of your friends and community members since they have spent the last semester interviewing these individuals and learning about their life stories. And in 3 cases, they wrote those life stories. And in one case, for 2 students who are working on a digital media major, they created a video of the person's life to introduce you to them. Some of you have supported our majors before and been here to listen to the programs. A few of you in the room have actually participated in the Legacy Project, and we have gotten to hear your stories as well. This project is the senior capstone in communication. This is one of the last requirements that these students have to meet before graduation in just a couple of weeks. And we are excited that this time is finally here. Using oral history is a way not only to allow the students to draw on their communication knowledge and writing skills, but also it allows them to create meaningful relationships in the community and to learn about parts of history that their partners have lived through from a firsthand experience. This year, our students interviewed Rebecca Rothrock, Nelda and Guilford Eikenberry, Scott Versaw, and Jerry Yergin. What a treat for us to get to know these upstanding members of the community better. And I have to tell you folks, one of the highlights of my semester has been coming in and getting to read the drafts and the stories of these people because I get to know them better through the students' writing as well. In the many years that we've been conducting the project, we found that the connections that the students make with their interviewees are very important and lasting. They contribute to the development of whole persons that we strive for at McPherson College. Today, you're going to hear from 6 seniors who have almost made it to graduation. During their time at the college, they have played in the band. They've played football, basketball, soccer. They've cheered for our athletes. They've starred in theater productions, been a part of the Cars Club and the Cars shows. They've worked on the campus newspaper. They've earned membership in Lambda Pi Eta, the National Communication Honor Society. They've worked on and off-campus jobs, and perhaps most importantly, they have made my job of going to work every day much more enjoyable because I get to work with them in the classroom. Over the next hour to hour and a half, these students are going to share their experiences in the Legacy Project. As I said before, 4 of them will be sharing about the stories that they have written, and 2 are going to be presenting a video that they created. If at some point you need to excuse yourself, please feel free to do so. We certainly understand. And if you miss hearing from one of our students and you'd like to watch the video later of them, this presentation is being archived and it will be streamed through the McPherson College website. As much as we are here to celebrate these seniors' final works, we are also here to commemorate their partners from the project. We are so appreciative of the time that you have given to our students this semester. After we are finished, we invite all of you to stay, to visit, to fellowship, to have some refreshments, to congratulate our seniors, and to greet the people that we are here to celebrate today. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first presenter, Logan Hartman.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to support us today. My name is Logan Hartman, as Becki just let you know. I've been at McPherson College since my freshman year, so I've spent all 4 years here. Wonderful years, I should say, at that. For my involvement in the school, I've been involved in the school newspaper known as The Spectator. I've been involved in the choir program. I've worked as an assistant for the communications department. And then I was also at one time the student representative for the communications department in searching for a new assistant professor in the communications department, Julia Largent, who was just spoken about. So, other than that, I'm supposed to tell you a unique fact about me. My family would tell you I love doing funny impersonations of any comical movie or TV scenes. So my parents probably think it's annoying by now, but I'm not going to stop because I think it's funny. So. In my time, why I chose McPherson College, I didn't really like the idea of sitting in a classroom with 300 other students or 200 other students or how many other students you want to count in these big universities. And I felt like I could get a lot more out of going to a smaller school where I was able to interact with the professors a lot more. And so with that, I began searching close to home because that was one of my criteria. And McPherson College was one of the colleges that popped up with a soccer program and a small school environment. So after going on my visit, I noticed some things. The small school environment definitely showed through, absolutely attractive to me because it was a really beautiful campus. And then even more so than that, the professors showed a high motivation to see their students succeed in both the academic world and the professional world. And that was something that ultimately helped me to make my decision to come here. When addressing this project, this was definitely an intimidating project. I was undecided when I started at McPherson College to begin with, and I started taking classes with Becki, and I was like, man, this is what I want to be involved with. So, I think that was my end of my freshman year, beginning of sophomore year, sometime in there. So, I had known about the project once I signed up for the communications department, and it was kind of like a looming. It's gonna come, and so I ended up going to these presentations last year and got to see what this was really all about. And in a way, it was nerve-wracking, but it motivated me more to prepare and want to do well in my presentation. So, like I said, this was an intimidating project, but one of the things that I was anxious about was not that it was going to be a hard project, but some of these questions that I would be asking Rebecca. Aren't easy questions. Some of these questions strike chords in your heart and are very emotional. And so that brought me a little bit of anxiety, but once I sat down and began talking with Rebecca, I could really get the vibe from her that she knew what was going on and she understood what she was volunteering for when she volunteered for this. So as far as the project, she made it so easy for me to work with her. Everything was a simple phone call and saying, hey, when can we meet this weekend? We can continue the story. Let's get it done, and that's how it went. So in my perception, it went really smoothly. I would hope she agrees. If not, we could talk after, I guess. But so before I get into reading some passages from my legacy story, I want to talk about some of the things that I learned from the communications program and from McPherson College as a whole. So the first thing that immediately popped in my head when I was thinking of things that I've found within myself in learning from the college, and the first thing I thought of was, in my time here, I've learned to be comfortable with myself, be comfortable with my views, to be comfortable with my beliefs, and not only my beliefs, but my perspectives, because I'm the only person that has my perspective, and that has value. But I also learned that that doesn't mean to diverge or distance myself from anything that's different from me or my culture or what I have experienced in my life, but more to embrace anything that is different, because that is where we grow as humans. One thing Becki will like, and this is just something I remembered and I don't know why, but one of the things I remember from some of the lessons was that when we get mad, many times it's because we have a fear. Anger comes from a fear of something. Amongst other things, I learned how to handle conflict, how to identify conflict. And as a whole, I don't know if this is good to say or not, but communication is messy. It's hard, and we don't think about it in our day-to-day lives, but it's tough. And when I think of much of the conflict that I have already experienced in my short life, I realize that it comes from miscommunications, some simple, some big. So with that being said, I would like to begin reading passages from my legacy story. I have a section of this presentation devoted to speaking of things I've learned from my time with Rebecca, interviews, going over my recorded interviews, and also writing the legacy project, but I would like to save that until after I read the passages. Rebecca Spear was born in Davenport, Iowa, to Minnie and Robert Spear. She had 2 older brothers and was the only member of her family to be born in a hospital. Shortly after her birth, her father's barn caught fire, which prompted a move to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where Rebecca was to be raised. So I chose that passage simply to set you up and let you know where she was born, where she was from. She was the youngest of 3 siblings, 2 older brothers. Now I will fast forward to a point in Rebecca's life where she is attending McPherson College, and she meets somebody who will be very important in her life. Rebecca met her husband Leighton when she was attending McPherson College. He was coming back to finish his degree after working on a farm during the war. The first time the two met was on campus. Their first date was going to a college basketball game at the downtown community center, which is where the college played all of its games due to the lack of a gym on campus. Leighton had purchased a car, and not as many students had cars in those days, so she felt particularly fortunate. During her college career, she was undecided for a time, but growing up, she was deeply involved in music and was impacted significantly by her involvement, and because of its impact, she chose to get her degree in music education, and she also minored in English as well. Rebecca and Leighton continued to date each other through college until Leighton decided it was time to pop the question. Leighton asked Rebecca to marry him during her junior year at their junior-senior retreat at a camp in Salina, Kansas. They were walking next to a stream at the camp when they sat down, and as they were watching the stream, he simply asked, "Would you marry me?" Rebecca responded immediately with an emphatic yes, and to which Leighton was shocked, saying, "You don't need to ask your parents for permission?" Her answer was, "Oh, they trust me." I thought that was quite funny. So we're going to fast forward a little bit farther. During a time when Rebecca and Leighton are living in Gresham, Nebraska, Leighton is a superintendent and Rebecca is teaching. Teaching was a little bit of a surprise to Rebecca at first because she had never been in a rural country school before. Things were run differently than at a large city high school like she had been familiar with in her adolescence. One thing she particularly remembers thinking was why she was having to teach so many classes compared to other teachers she remembered having when she was younger. Rebecca remembers doing classes in music education, music theory, English, home economics, shorthand, which I didn't know existed until this project, just so you know, typing, and other classes during her time teaching in the rural Nebraska school. Many of those classes being taught at the same time as well. Now we're going to fast forward a little bit more to a significant part of Rebecca and Leighton's history, which will describe what brought them to McPherson. While living in Gresham, Nebraska, Rebecca and Leighton got a call from President Bittinger at McPherson College. They hung the phone up with a job offer for Leighton to be the head of the teacher education department at the college. A job at McPherson College was something that the two had discussed before and thought that was very much a possibility, but they had no way of knowing if it would come, and if it did come, when it would come. Another reason for apprehension over accepting this job was because Leighton knew what the professors at the college were being paid at that time, and when comparing it to what he was making as a superintendent, made the decision a little bit more difficult. Now, this one, I wanted to read this story just because I knew immediately when Rebecca told me the story that I was going to read this at the presentation, so I'm just going to read it. Rebecca's third child, Lamont, was her easiest pregnancy, and she remembers the day he was born specifically because of her husband's reaction. As she was preparing to deliver Lamont, Dayton was with Rebecca in the hospital, but had a class coming up at the beginning of the hour. When it came time to deliver, Rebecca remembers Dayton saying, "Well, I gotta go. I gotta get to class." And he went to class. He was a brave man, I'll say that. Another part of Rebecca's life that was very significant to her was remembering trips that she took with her family and her husband as well. This passage is from that part of the story. One of the lasting memories Rebecca developed with her family was their vacations, where her and Dayton would plan a 3 to 5 week trip. They would commonly road trip to see the United States with a trailer camper that could sleep 5 people, and one of these vacations even included a trip to Northern England where they would spend a year, as Dayton was the head of the Brethren College Abroad program. The trip she took with her family, moving to McPherson, and their international trips abroad all rank as the happiest times in her life. During 20 years of international trips, she was able to visit 30 different countries around the world. She reflected, "I never would have dreamed that one day I would have rode in a plane." The next passage I chose because it reflects what pride Rebecca has in her family. Rebecca was thankful that she didn't have to worry about the livelihoods of her 3 sons because all 3 of them were doing fantastic and making lives of their own for themselves. When her first son, Terry, graduated from Laverne College in California with a degree in pottery. When he graduated, she made the joke to him saying, "You couldn't make a living that way." Her son would have the last laugh in this one, as he did go on to become a pottery teacher at the Idlewild Arts Academy, a fine arts boarding school in Idlewild, California, known for its reputation of producing exceptional graduates. Her middle son, Craig, became a doctor of plant pathology and was a professor at the University of Arkansas for 29 years and has just recently retired. And her third son, Lamont, has a degree in education, taught while getting a master's degree in counseling, later acted as the dean of students at McPherson College, and eventually ended up at a position here as the vice president of marketing and sales. This is another passage that is just good, clean comedy, so that's why I chose this one. Let me find it real quick. Okay, another memory Rebecca carries with her fondly is the story of her middle son, Craig, and his first experience cleaning out the onions. At the time, he was around 7 or 8, and cleaning out the freshly planted onions really meant pulling all the weeds from around the onions so that the onions could grow successfully. To his parents' amusement, instead of cleaning the garden of unwanted weeds, their 7-year-old son, Craig, the eventual green thumb of the family, proceeded to ruin their freshly planted onions by taking them all the way out of the ground. So that was quite fun. So this next story, after Rebecca and Dayton would retire, Dayton would go through multiple cataract surgeries, and that is important information to know before I read this next passage. Something in the second cataract surgery caused Dayton to begin having dementia. That night, after the surgery during the day, Rebecca remembers Dayton saying something that didn't make sense. The doctors thought there might be a chance that his symptoms would go away within a couple weeks, but that was not so. She didn't let this stop her from continuing to live the life they wanted to live. Rebecca said he was so pleasant and easy to get along with, even in his dementia. He was pleasant and he loved going to college games, theater performances, church, events at the Cedars, and they continued to live life the way they had before. It made me so happy, Rebecca recalled. People at church couldn't believe how I took care of him. I just said, if I'm working in the flower beds, I bring a chair and let him sit. If he's on the patio while I'm working, I would bring the radio because he liked to listen to classical music. And down at the library, they have so many films or videos, not just movies, biographies, travel readings, or movies. I would check some of those out every week for him and bring them back so he could watch or read. I mean, sure, it takes my time, but what was I going to use my time for anyways? So I would try to plan things that I knew he would enjoy doing. And I think that might be my favorite passage in this whole legacy story. And I don't know if I need to talk more about why. This last passage is from the end of my legacy story, where much of the questions involved asking Rebecca about her interpretation of the life she has lived and the experiences she has seen. Rebecca has been through a lot of experiences in her life, and if she was giving advice to people who were going through a tough time, she would tell them a couple things. The first is that if you are married, no matter what type of situation you are going through, that you should try and work your conflict out with your significant other. Another piece of advice she would give to anyone struggling is that life is tough and there are going to be times that are hard. But in this life, because of her faith, she knows that it is okay to ask for and expect help along the way. She wisely said, sometimes it's family members, but sometimes it's not, and that's exactly the way that it should be. This has been something that has been true for Rebecca and Dayton since the day that they moved to McPherson. On the day they moved here, she can remember Dayton saying, well, whatever we need now, it's in McPherson. And this is a statement she still believes to be true to this day. Now, after those passages, I would like to talk about what I have taken away from my time speaking with Rebecca and writing this legacy project. The first realization that I made is that history is not some far-fetched thing. That history is made in the little moments of our lives where we make decisions to impact the communities that surround us. And that in this life, we need our family, our friends, and our peers to move forward, progress, grow, and sometimes simply make it to the next day. Overall, I learned from Rebecca that being thankful in life is something we should do every day and in every situation that we're involved in. So, with that being said, to Rebecca, thank you for allowing me to enter your home. Thank you for all the knowledge and wisdom that you provided us and me with. Thank you for volunteering as part of this project, because this is something that I'll remember for the rest of my life. So, thank you. I forgot to ask if we could please give a fresh round of applause for Leighton and Aysia, right?
Hello, everyone. My name is Aysia Pryor. I'm from Wichita, Kansas originally. I've been to McPherson College for the last 4 years, and I've really enjoyed my time there. What brought me to McPherson College is I joined the cheer program beginning my freshman year. And while at McPherson College, I've had so many opportunities, from newspaper to Spectator, well, same thing, sorry. But yeah, I worked on the newspaper, I cheered, I was a resident assistant, I was on the activity board as well. And I really enjoyed all the opportunities I've had at McPherson College.
I'm Leighton Swearingen. I'm a senior in the Automotive Restoration Communication program. And the reason I chose McPherson was definitely the Automotive Restoration program for myself. I remember my dad called me one day while I was at a training for the military, and he told me that he'd seen this automotive restoration program on TV that Jay Leno was talking about, and it was just a couple hours away from home in Topeka. So we looked into it, and eventually the next year I came here.
So me and Leighton would say that working on this project has, it's been an amazing experience, and it's a little, like Logan said, it's a little intimidating as well, and to be able to, you have the opportunity to capture, two amazing people's lives, and you just want to capture that in the most, correct way, so it's a little intimidating, but it was very amazing overall, and so we're gonna begin sharing the story. Nelda Baltner was born in Dallas Center, Iowa on December 3rd, 1930. Most of Nelda's childhood was spent living on a farm with her brothers Claire and Carl. When it was known that Nelda was going to attend college, her father first opposed the idea, but her mother talked him into it. Her father came to like the idea so much that while he was at the local grocery store, he bragged about it to the store owners. He told them that his daughter would be attending McPherson College in Kansas, and they responded that their cousin, Guilford John Eikenberry, would be attending McPherson College as well.
Guilford Eikenberry Jr. was born on December 26, 1929 in Fargo, North Dakota, and he was an only child. Soon after he was born, his father moved the family to Columbus, Ohio to pursue a doctorate. After 3 years, the family was again moved to Berkeley, California, where his father would work with the Forest Service. Eventually, again, they would move to Portales, New Mexico, so his father could work at the University of Eastern New Mexico. One last time, the family moved to Stillwater, Oklahoma, where his father accepted a position as a science professor at Oklahoma State University. This is where Guilford would spend most of his childhood and his time through being a young adult, and he would go to high school there and eventually decide to go to McPherson College.
Guilford quickly became acquainted with his peers at McPherson College. During his first year, he wasn't sure what he wanted to study, so he took upon general studies courses, and was involved in vocal choir. College was a time for Nelda to be free and to be herself, which she really enjoyed. She was able to make friends, and people seemed to like her, which she considered a surprise. The two didn't become acquainted with one another until joining choir. Nelda recalls hearing Guilford laugh and talk in the back row of the choir, and she thought he sounded like a wholesome guy. She never heard him say anything unkind to anyone. After going on a few dates during their first year of college, taking walks, and seeing movies, Guilford impressed Nelda. During the second year of college, Nelda received a call from the school principal of her hometown, offering her a position to teach kindergarten in a small school, and she accepted the position. At the end of their second year of college, in the summer before Nelda began teaching, Guilford bought her a diamond ring. They decided they would get married whenever they could because they were so busy. Guilford stayed at McPherson College for his junior year while Nelda went back home to teach. Guilford and Nelda communicated with each other by mail and visited each other whenever they could. By the end of the school year, Nelda was talking about coming back to McPherson College. Nelda made the decision to return to McPherson College for her senior year, and her and Guilford got married August 26, 1951. For their honeymoon, they got train tickets to Chicago and spent a week there doing everything they could possibly do for free, such as going to the museum, movies, riding the Metropolitan Transportation System, and going to the planetarium to visit people that they knew there. After their honeymoon, they returned to Nelda's home in Dallas Center, Iowa, and packed up to return to McPherson College and begin their fall semester.
After graduating from McPherson College, Guilford accepted a position as a science and math teacher at a high school in McLouth, Kansas. Soon after this, their first child, Susan, was born. The family was very busy between work and their growing family, and it took a couple years before Nelda and Guilford decided that he should continue his education and pursue a master's degree. With that decision, they returned to Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Guilford attended Oklahoma State. After this, at his professor's prodding, he decided to pursue a doctorate immediately, and they would again move to Ames, Iowa, where Guilford attended Iowa State University. Upon finishing his doctorate, he accepted a position at Michigan State University as a fresh 29-year-old professor. While Guilford was working at Michigan State, Nelda began taking classes in pursuit of her own master's degree. Guilford worked for Michigan State University for 3 years while Nelda worked on her master's. Guilford excelled at MSU as a science professor. However, McPherson College had been trying to get Guilford to come work on their campus for years. When a full-time position finally opened up at McPherson College, Guilford and Nelda returned to where they'd met and settled down and built the home that they still live in to this day. While Guilford was able to step straight into the position in the science department, Nelda went off and found her place by establishing a program for exceptional students at McPherson High School.
Nelda and Guilford retired in 1993. They both loved the work they were doing. Guilford was working at the college and Nelda did her special education program. One of their reasons for retiring was to allow for more traveling. They made time to travel prior to retiring, but during their retirement, they were able to travel and see places they'd never been before. One of Guilford and Nelda's early trips during retirement was their trip to Cornwall, Great Britain. Both of Guilford's grandparents immigrated from Cornwall. This was a new experience for the couple because they'd never been to Great Britain. They went to visit and see various things throughout Great Britain and traveled towards London and Scotland and ended up furthest north of the mainland of Great Britain one could be. The entire time of the trip was also spent bird watching and watching the plants and animals. Guilford and Nelda always found connections with people whenever they travel and visit different places. They also visited Austria for about 3 months and went hiking in the Alpine Mountains. They were also able to visit their daughter and her husband while they were living there at that time. Guilford always wanted to go to Alaska, so they decided to take their camper out to Alaska in the late 1990s. It took them 3 months to drive up to Alaska, and they were able to see many places they wanted to see, from the west to the east. When asked what they would want to remember about them, Guilford said that he would want people to know that he really enjoyed his work, and he couldn't imagine doing anything else after he began teaching at McPherson College. He said that neither one of them were ready to retire and didn't expect to retire. After retirement came, they evaluated what they wanted to do with the rest of their lives and decided to travel. Collectively, they decided the timing was right and there would be people to replace them eventually. Mostly, Nelda and Guilford spoke for each other as they reflected on what they wanted others to remember. Nelda said, "I could tell you I want people to know about Guilford, that he is the kindest heart and he's very, very generous, and that he's trustworthy. He has no malice in his body at all. He's a lifelong companion." Guilford chimed in, saying the same thing about Nelda. He responded, "I don't know anybody who has more positive view about people in the future than Nelda. She's a very positive person. I have never in my life ever heard her say anything that could be mistaken or interpreted as an untruth. She's absolutely truthful, and there was never a more honest and truthful person in terms of what you evaluate incidents and so on. And she's so dedicated with her children that she taught. She used to say that was her life doing that, and other people recognize that, which is why she got Teacher of the Year. Their admiration for each other speaks to the reasons they have been married for so many years."
That's it for our presentation. The last thing we want to do is thank both Nelda and Guilford for spending this last semester with us and sharing with us all of your stories. It really has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for allowing us into your home and giving us the time. And it was almost every Tuesday for that first beginning of the semester that we came into your homes, and just, this kind of gets I'm kind of a sensitive person, so this is a little emotional. It's to see you guys' faces 7 p.m., and to spend about an hour and a half with you two was very, very enjoyable. And it was something that we always looked forward to doing. And, one of our favorite parts, I know collectively we talked that, one of our favorite parts after the interview was done, when we would just sit there and kind of talk and get to know one another. You guys would ask us about ourselves and stuff, and I thought that was very, very, I appreciate that. We both appreciate that, so thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Armond McCray. I am a senior communication major. I'm from Wichita, Kansas, and I'm a football player. Football is what brought me to McPherson. I started off at a junior college, Coffeyville, and after completing my 2 seasons there, I graduated December of 2016. And so after that, I kind of scrambled around trying to find a new home because I didn't want to take a break, and so I wanted to make sure I got enrolled by the spring of 2017. And so I did some searching, looking for schools, and then I got a call from my friend Ed over here, and he said, "Why don't you come down to McPherson College?" because that's where he was. And so I kind of laughed at first, like, I don't know about that. But after a while, I kind of thought about it, and I came on a visit, and I actually liked the place. I liked the coaches. I liked the environment that I saw. Like I said, coming from a junior college, I was already used to the smaller school experience. So like Logan mentioned, I like that vibe, and so I wanted to keep it going, and so here I am now. Talked about the football thing. One fact about me, another thing, education has always been instilled in me, and so one fact I want to let out is that throughout all of my college courses, all of my hours, I've had 3 Bs. One of those Bs came from Becki. I won't mention if I cried or not after that. And then I had 1 C, but that came in a summer course, so that doesn't really count. But the rest, other than that, have been all A's. Julia, she bailed me out once, but I'll keep that on the low. When I first got to McPherson, I was a business major, but after taking, I think it was only 1 semester of a couple of classes with Becki, I knew that it was time to make a switch. I won't say she stole me, but she definitely let me know, you'd be a great fit in the communication department. She mentioned that more than once, and her being the communicator that she is, using her persuasion techniques, here I am, like I said, being a communication major. And so I think it was a good switch, though. I'm happy with it, and so we'll see where this goes. I've learned a lot of things being in the communication program. I've always considered myself a decent communicator, but taking these courses really helped me open up my mind with courses like gender comm, conflict, and interpersonal communication. They definitely opened up my mind to different perspectives and allowed me to think on different things that I didn't think about before. So I've been happy with all of the courses and where I'm at today. Another thing that being a communication major has done has pushed my writing skills. I've always, or at least growing up, I considered myself a math person. I like numbers, but throughout time, I always heard from teachers, oh, you're a good writer, but I never really took it serious or even believed it. But after a while, with taking courses like media writing, and then Kim's her class now, expository writing, has definitely pushed me, and I like writing a little bit better now. I'm pretty confident in it, so I'm grateful for that, for the writing that I've been pushed to get to. Getting into the project with Scott, it changed my view of things, and it changed his view as well. One thing that he told me a couple of weeks ago was that he always hears from people around his age, his peers, that, oh, the young kids nowadays, they're doomed, or they're headed down the wrong path. And he said him getting the experience to actually be here and go to school, in 2015, and being around people like myself has kind of changed his perspective on that and allowed him to see that we're not doing so bad and that maybe we'll be all right after all. And so hopefully he's right. We'll see in a couple of years, 30 years, I don't know. But he also changed my perspective as well. If you would have asked me a semester ago, hey, would you like to hang out with someone 3 times your age, I'd probably say, I'll pass. I mean, I'd probably say that. But now with this experience with Scott, I've actually changed that mindset, and I enjoyed hanging out with someone a lot older than me, and so I'm happy for that. When I first got the news that I would be doing my project over Scott, I was a little worried. Like I said, I'm not always the most social person, so I was a little nervous about the project. In order to do the project, you have to first complete a research project during the first semester. And the rules are, if you don't pass the first research project, then you wouldn't be allowed to do this project. And so there might have been a small thought, Armond just failed the research, so then you'll do it again the second project, and then you won't have to do the legacy project. But I didn't want to let Becki down. I didn't want to let myself down. So I passed the research project and I completed the legacy project, and I'm happy I didn't fail it, and yeah. So the first time I met Scott, we were at Craft Coffee Shop. That's not a paid promotion. When I met him, like I said, I was a little nervous going into it. He told me to look for a guy in a gray cap, I believe. And so I got there, I looked around, no one had on a gray cap. So I sat there, I waited, and then finally I saw a man walk in, and I was like, maybe that's him. And so he looked at me and he said, Armond? I said, Armond. And that was the start. And from the start, I knew that we'd be a hit. The first thing I asked him was to state his full name. And so he said, all right, my name is Lawrence Scott Versall. And then he told me that he goes by Scott instead of Lawrence. And so it's always been a hassle for him to tell people, hey, my name is actually Scott, or that's what I go by. And he was like, I don't know if you can relate to that or not. And so I kind of laughed. And then I told him that actually my name is Armond McCray. And like I introduced myself, I go by Armond. So from the start, I knew that we had that connection, and we laughed and were like, I know exactly what you mean. First day of school, the teachers will call your name. You're like, that's me, but don't call me that. And so just from then, I knew that we had that connection, and that small thing there just was able to build something that got to where we are now. And so, like I said, starting with that, I knew that we'd have a lot of similarities. And so throughout this, I just kind of want to tell you guys the ways I kind of saw myself in Scott and other things that I didn't see. And so the first story that I'll read is about Scott at home versus how he is at school. And so, like I said, my mom's here, so she can vouch for any of these stories I mentioned about myself. A lot of times, I'm funny at home, but she's never seen me around my peers. So whenever I tell her, hey, Mom, I did this or I did that, like hosting an event at the school or participating in rap battle, she would say, you did that? And I'd be like, yeah, me. She, no way. And I'm like, yes, like, who do you think I am? And so it's just funny that she would never, or always kind of second guess that other side that you might not see of your child. And so I'll read a passage about Scott that kind of showed me the same thing. The quiet, mild-mannered, little old man Scott was known to be around house was not the same Scott that students and teachers saw at school every day. Like it is for a lot of kids, school was Scott's outlet to be himself and act how he wanted. Throughout his early years in school, Scott built himself quite the reputation for being the class clown. Originally, his parents were surprised to hear about this side of their son. They weren't accustomed to seeing it at home. They were so surprised that they may have doubted the teacher stories about their son during conferences. But that doubt or disbelief slowly went away after hearing similar stories from different teachers year after year during parent-teacher conferences. Scott specifically recalls a story about one teacher who had enough of his behavior in class and decided to discipline him. It was his third grade teacher, Miss Grant. She was a stern woman, almost drill sergeant-like, who wore big black high-top boots to work every day. She gave off a very military-type vibe. The day she decided to punish Scott, she called him to the front of the room and then made him sit under the desk in a small cutout section where the feet went. So it'd be like sitting under something like that. And so, where was I? That may not have been the worst punishment imaginable, but Scott did not like being disciplined in front of all of his peers, so was successful and he got a little better from there. Although to this day, Scott still looks back and wonders if putting a boy under the desk of a dress-wearing woman was the best decision a teacher could have made. When he told me that story, we both laughed, and he was like, I don't know if that was the best idea. I don't know either, but I don't know. Another similarity that I saw in Scott and myself was that we're both creative. Over the years, I've kind of not had as much time to do creative things as I would like to do, but especially growing up, I did a lot of projects around home and things like that, and so this story kind of reminded me of something that I might have done if I was in Scott's shoes. It's about him in high school. Adjusting to high school can have its ups and downs for sure, and even though Scott was going into high school with a lot of the same friends he already knew, he still has some experience to go through. Golden High School, where Scott attended, had a tradition that each senior class made sure to carry out. The tradition was to order the sophomore class boys to attend school on a designated day wearing a skirt. Since this was an enforced tradition, Scott decided it would probably be best if he participated. Now, the toughest part about this, next to showing up wearing a skirt, was finding a skirt to wear. Scott did not go to his mother for help very often, so he was not about to start with asking her for one of her skirts. Instead, being the intelligent, creative person he was, he decided that he would just make a skirt. He gathered as many newspapers as he could and cut them into strips and strung them together. He was proud of his makeshift Hawaiian-style skirt. To this day, Scott's parents are still not aware of this creative skirt that their son wore due to the enforced tradition. but Scott can only imagine that his father would have been disappointed and would have disapproved of his son walking through the halls of Golden High School wearing a skirt. Probably would have done the same thing. I don't know if I wanted to ask my mom, hey mom, you got any skirts that'll fit me? I don't know. There's also another story in here about football and me being a football player. Of course, I have to read it off to you guys. And another thing about the story that I liked was that it just shows how Scott is willing to put himself out there and go for anything and not really worried about what people will think or how things will go. He'll do it. All right, so this is about a team, like I said. His freshman year, I believe, of high school, he played on the football team, and they weren't very good, but that's besides the point. The team was not the greatest or the most talented, which was proven with their 1-7 record. But that one game that they did win was one to remember. Scott's team faced an opposing school that had a similar record as theirs. Neither team was all that great, but someone had to win. Scott remembers that game. It was very low scoring. It was a close one from start to finish. He wonders now if the game was so close because it was such a tough matchup or if it was simply because neither team was good enough to score very often. However, towards the end of the game, in dramatic fashion, his team pulled away with the win. Although they had not gotten a ton of playing time, Scott and his friend Larry, they celebrated just as loud and just as proud as the rest of his teammates. The fact that the team did not have the best record that season was all washed away, even if only for a minute with that win. So like I said, that story I liked it because it shows that Scott, like I said, growing up, he wasn't very athletic. He didn't do sports. That wasn't a big thing in his house. But his freshman year, his friend Larry decided to ask him, hey, why not go out for the football team? And so he went for it. And so I appreciated that because, like I said, he's a doer and he went for it. The next story I'll read about is about Scott and a haircut that he did or did not get. The point of the story, or the thing that I saw in the story, was that he can be a little, what's the word? Sometimes he's a little hard-headed, and sometimes I can be a little hard-headed. He can be stuck in his ways, or he'll want to do things his way, I guess I would say, and this story kind of shows that. All right. And so to follow up or to give you guys a little prefix about where it was, Scott had taken a random spontaneous trip to Canada after he graduated high school. Once again, he's a doer. He throws himself out there. Who takes a random hitchhiking trip to Canada? I don't know. He did it. But on his way there, he built his own look and he kind of changed himself. And so this is what happened afterwards. However, there was one part of this new image that Scott's father was not fond of. At the time, Scott's hair was longer than usual. Not as long as some of the big-name music stars that were popular in the 70s, but still longer than usual. This was a problem for his father, and he demanded that Scott cut his hair before he left for college. Typically, Scott would have agreed, and he would have cut his hair by the end of school. But Scott had just returned from his reinvigorating trip to Canada, where he spent time experiencing freedom and rebuilding his image to his liking. The longer hair was a part of this new image, so Scott told his father no. After debating over the haircut for some time, Scott's father finally gave out the ultimatum. You get your haircut before school starts, or I will not be paying for college. And Scott decided to stand his ground and refused to get the haircut and agreed to pay for college on his own. I can be stubborn, but I would not pay for college on my own. Like I said, I take my haircuts pretty serious. I go home, I make a 45-minute drive, but I would have gotten the haircut if mom said to get it or no college because I would not be paying for McPherson College on my own. The next story, I just thought it was kind of funny and I wanted to share it. I know a lot of people can relate to their parents telling stories that they might not have wanted to get out or talking about them to people that they might not have wanted them to talk to. And so this story is about Scott's parents. They were talking with his ex-wife at the time, and so he wasn't quite fond of that. And so I'll tell you how that went. Although Scott and Layne agreed that they would end things, not everyone else felt that way. Over the years, Scott's parents had become attached to Layne, maybe even more so than what they were with Scott. This meant that they were not quite ready to let go of Layne at the same time that their son was. Because Scott and Layne were still on good enough terms to talk, she told him how she went out with his parents for dinner only a few months after their divorce. She told Scott that he was one of the topics throughout the dinner, saying that his parents told her all that Scott had been doing since the divorce. This did not sit well with Scott. He didn't necessarily mind them talking, but not if his business was going to be discussed. So in very Scott-like fashion, he wrote his parents a letter. In the letter, he let them know that he heard about what they did and that he did not think that it was right of them. He also asked his parents to both acknowledge that they were wrong, and so that is what they did. Scott received a letter back from his father admitting that what they did probably wasn't the best decision and they should not have done it. He then ended the letter saying that they would no longer see the ex-wife again. And so I can just kind of picture my mom doing something like that and then me having to tell her, Mom, that's not cool, let's not do that again. Another story that I wanted to mention was how Scott, he's been a pretty lucky man over the years, and I tend to be pretty lucky as well. I win drawings at school, I win on bingo night, I won a printer, still haven't opened it, but I won. And so I consider myself to be pretty lucky as well. And so this story is about how Scott met his wife, and I feel like it was pretty lucky. Like I said, he got a divorce and then he met his next wife pretty soon in a good fashion. Once everything was settled from the divorce, Scott moved into an apartment by himself. Scott was alone for the first time and also in a new home, but he quickly adjusted and felt comfortable there. Layne was taking classes that were for divorce adjustment, his ex-wife. She reached out and suggested that Scott take them, saying, "Just make sure you don't take the same class that I'm in." Although Scott was doing fine, he decided to take the classes and signed up for one. In this class, he met a woman named Beth that was fresh off a divorce just like he was. Dating other members in class was prohibited, so the two did limited flirting here and there and kept things casual. Both Scott and Beth were chosen to help each other and help out in the next cycle of classes, so this kept them around each other, slowly building their relationship. As soon as the classes ended, the two immediately began dating. And Beth is now Scott's wife, so it's pretty cool that he met his wife in the divorce classes that were suggested by his ex-wife. It's crazy how things work, but I guess she did him a favor there. One more thing that I want to read off is that, like I said, I mentioned earlier how education is pretty big with me and my family, so I thought that this is pretty cool. Like I said, Scott, he's been to 3 different colleges and he has 3 degrees, so I want to read this. Scott returned to CSU to begin the pursuit for his 3rd degree, but after a rough start into his first semester, he realized that he would not have a better success rate unless he transferred. So in 2013, Scott decided to transfer to McPherson College and join its nationally known auto restoration program. Originally, when Scott first moved to McPherson, he and Beth both figured that they could make things work as long as they visited each other weekly or at least bi-weekly. But that just wasn't enough time for the two. Because of that reason, Beth packed up and moved to McPherson, Kansas, where she would stay with Scott in his temporary apartment until the two decided it would be best to go out and purchase a house. With the support from his wife, being around him now 24/7, Scott was able to push himself through 5 semesters at McPherson College. In 2015, Scott Broussard did what he sought out to do and received his 3rd degree, this one in auto restoration. And so the fact that he has 3 degrees is just pretty cool to me. And like I said, this would be my first, or I guess my second. I got my associate from Coffeyville, so I have 2. But I just thought that was pretty cool. Like I said, once again, he threw himself out there. He went back to school. He was a non-traditional student, so he wasn't the same age as all of us, so it was a big move for him, but he went for it, and of course he succeeded, as he always does. I'd like to wrap it up, getting a little bit more serious. Scott, in 2018, I believe, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and so when I first heard that he had it, I thought, this might be kind of rough. Doing the interviews, I didn't know what his conditions would be like. I didn't know how healthy he was or how mobile he would be. But throughout the interviews, I couldn't even tell he had it, and we really didn't talk about it that much. And for that purpose, I really didn't mention it that much in the paper because it's not something that Scott focuses on. He doesn't want to harbor on it or just sit there and think about that all day. He wants to live his life and do the things that he wants to do, and I appreciated that, and I just thought that he was pretty brave, and he has a pretty positive outlook on it, so it's pretty encouraging and inspirational. And so this last page of the book, it was titled Something to Look Forward to. Most people diagnosed with something as serious as cancer would be at least a little frightened about it, but not Scott. Not only does Scott refuse to be frightened by the condition, but he also refuses to spend his time worrying about it. Instead, he would rather spend the rest of his years, a number that he is uncertain of, a number that no one can ever be certain of, living for today rather than tomorrow. He wants to knock out the type of things that he would have normally put off for later. Scott believes that this strength and courage to have this mindset comes from his faith. Although he doesn't consider himself the most persistent or dedicated religious person in the world, Scott believes that his Christian faith gives him something to look forward to, something even better. He knows that it will be sad when his time comes for him to go, and he feels bad for the people that he'll have to leave behind. But that is something that he wants to worry about when the time comes. Until then, he will continue living out his life the way he wants to. His life is already impressive and memorable and experience-packed, and he wants to live life doing things that give him the greatest sense of accomplishment with the people that give him the greatest sense of enjoyment. Scott has already taken on and accomplished so many things in life that there is no telling what he will achieve next. But one thing is for certain, any new task, goal, or mission that Scott sets his eyes on next, he will go for it, not fearing the risk or unknown about it. And then he will accomplish it, simply because that is what he always has done, and so that is what he will continue to do. And so with that being said, the thing that I want you guys to get out most from this is just that no matter how old or how young you are, it's never too late or too early to start doing the things that you want to do. Like I said, Scott, he just spends his time now doing anything that makes him happy, anything that will give him this greatest sense of accomplishment. And so I want everybody else to do the same. Just go out, do what you want to do. Don't think about, I don't know if I can do it, or I don't know what'll happen. Just go for it. And so, especially me and my friends being in this point in life, we're about to graduate and get off into a new life. And so we might be nervous or wondering, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to try to go. But whatever it is you want to do, just go for it and give it a shot. And that's all I have. Another round of applause for Scarlet and Layne.
Wow, guys, good job. Y'all did so good, all of you. I'm so impressed. Okay, well, we're gonna get the video set up, but I'm Scarlet Rodriguez. I'm a communication
Hello.
major.
My name is Jerry Wall-Jurgen.
And that's
this is-
Jerry. Yes, okay, so this is our video that we created over Jerry. And like I said, I'm communication major. I'm a senior, and I'm from Houston, Texas. So yes, I'm from Houston, and I came here to Mac, a very small town, very different from Houston. I went to a private school, St. Pius X, which was also kind of a smaller school, so I kind of was okay with the smaller school setting at Mac. I played 4 years of basketball at McPherson College. Our assistant coach, who couldn't be here today, she saw me play in Dallas, and we got a letter in the mail from McPherson College, and me and my dad went up here and we came to visit, and I don't know, I loved Mac. It felt like home to me, and my experience here has been amazing. I have met so many wonderful people. I have had some lifelong friends that I'll remember forever, literally like forever. And I just want to talk a little bit about Jerry. Yeah, so my experience with Jerry has been amazing. And if you see her shirt, it says fabulous, and that she is literally fabulous. She has become not only like for this project, but I would consider you as a friend and a part of my Mac family. I don't know why I'm getting like all emotional, but I don't know, today I couldn't even believe that this day was here, and it's kind of bittersweet for me. It's exciting because we're graduating, but it's also a little sad just because I won't be able to get to see you every week. Anyways, I'm gonna like stop crying over here. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity, and really like it was so awesome going to your house every week. I would literally call my mom and be like, Jerry this, Jerry that, and I would tell my friends, I would constantly talk about you all the time. But so this project was definitely awesome, and we had a little bit different project, like they did the paper, we're doing a video, and we had 8 hours of footage of Jerry. So imagine that, and we basically had to put it into a little mini 20-minute video. So we got some good stuff in there, so I hope y'all enjoy it. And this is my partner, Layne, who will talk now.
So I'm Layne Higgens. I'm from Lyman, Colorado, so McPherson is actually a pretty big town for me. You guys have a Walmart and a movie theater with multiple theaters in it, so you guys are the big leagues to me. I came here and original intent was to be a political science major. Turned it around and joined the communications program and changed my major 2 times within the communications program in the last 4 years I've been here. I started off as applied communications and switched to digital communications, and now my major is digital media with an emphasis in communications. And as far as my knowledge, I think I will be the first one to graduate from McPherson College with that degree, and it's really an honor to see how far the college has come in just my 4 years here. They're really expanding, doing lots of excellent things. I've had a wonderful experience with not only my professors, but I've met tons of friends here that I will continue to be friends with for the rest of my life, including Jerry. I started off on the track team here, and the track team was an excellent experience. It helped me grow, met lots of people. The coaches were very hospitable. I'm in the band now. I've had plenty of experiences to grow as a musician. It's helped me grow even more as a person to be in the band and to be in the communications program. I'd just like to give a huge special thanks to Scarlet for being an excellent partner, to Jerry for inviting us into her home, and she's such a wonderful person. The first day we showed up, she didn't have anything for us and didn't realize it till the end, and had to make sure next time she had banana bread and coffee ready for us every time. She's so nice. It was excellent to meet her. I also want to say thank you to Becki and Julia and Nathan for making themselves readily available for all of us day and night, giving us the guidance and the help that we need. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video we made.
Hello, my name is Jerry Wall-Jurgen, and this is my story. Boarding house at 4811 East Grand Street in Dallas, Texas on September the 29th, 1939. So I'm almost 80 years old. My dad was working at Ford Motor Company in Dallas. My mom was a homemaker. We lived in this little boarding house, and my grandmother and my aunt were at my birth. Then we stayed in Dallas until I was just a toddler. And then my father wanted to go to Arizona and pan for gold, or mine for gold. And my mom just didn't want to do that. And she wanted the little house with the picket fence and wanted just a normal life. And my dad was an adventurer. And so he ended up going on, and my mom moved the two of us back to Denison, Texas, where my grandparents lived, where my mom was born and my grandparents were born. So it was different for me to be from a divorced family when all my friends had both parents. And I lived with my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother, and my aunt. And I was the only child, and it was wonderful. I had a wonderful childhood. I was a really quiet child, and no one would know that now. Yeah, I liked outside, but I was really indoors. I loved to read. I loved to listen to the radio. That's all we had back then. And most of the time I had my own room, so I could just shut the door, and I was a really quiet child, and that's what I liked to do when I was a kid. But I had some really sweet little girlfriends. Carol and Priscilla Fesperman, first grade. And Repsy Ray Dobbins, they were all in Denison. And we met in like first grade, and we're still friends. I was much closer to my mother. I didn't really know my father because he went off, like I said, to mine for gold, and I didn't know him. But I did meet up with my father. I found him years later when I was like 26 years old. My mom was my best friend. But my mom remarried my stepfather when I was 7 years old. And so that was a happy time because I wanted a dad. And then they went on to have 2 children, my sisters. And I wanted sisters. I wanted a family like that because I didn't have it. So then it became really like everyone else, you know. That's what I felt like. We moved to Kansas when I was 10 years old. My dad was a railway mail clerk, and he got transferred from Denison, Texas up to Wichita. But we didn't want to live, and Dad and Mom didn't want to live in a big city, Wichita, so we lived in Newton. And so we moved up there when I was 10, and we were only supposed to stay 2 years in Kansas. Look, I'm almost 80 and I'm still here in Kansas. It was just really a fun time to grow up in a small town in Kansas during the 50s. And it was just really almost like the movies they make about what it was like back then. It was really easy, it was fun, it was innocent. I've always loved music, and if you grew up as a teenager when I did in the 50s, that music was very, very important in your life, and just really enjoyed all the rock and roll that became popular during my teen years. Bill Haley and the Comets kind of started it off, and Rock Around the Clock, and then Buddy Holly and the Crickets, we loved them. Really loved Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Elvis, of course. Oh my gosh, I was crazy for Elvis. Still am. I got to see Elvis in person. Got to see him way back in the early 50s when he was at the Forum Theater in Wichita. Mick Jagger's my favorite. I've seen him dozens of times. Getting ready to see him this summer again out in Denver. One of the big highlights was September 17th, 1964, when the Beatles came to America with their first American tour. My first husband, Roland, and I had tickets to go. I happened to be about 6-7 months pregnant at the time, but that didn't stop us. And we took my 2 little sisters, Billie Jean and Patsy. They went with us, and my oldest son, Rick, who was 5 years old at the time. We took off and went to see the Beatles and in Kansas City, and it was unbelievable. My favorite Beatle was John Lennon, and they started off singing "Twist and Shout" was their first song, and John singing lead on that. And I don't think we heard any more of the concert because everyone was just screaming like you would know they would be screaming, including me. My oldest son says, "Mom, this is probably going to be your very last time to see the Rolling Stones." And I said, "Rick, you can't say that to me. As long as Mick is rocking and rolling, so am I," because we're close to the same age. No, and when I was in high school, that's what you did. You danced. If you didn't dance, you didn't do anything. We danced all the time and had sock hops. In 1955, there was in the early spring. I was a sophomore in high school, and there was a casting call. There was something in the little Newton, Kansas newspaper, a little ad that said they were going to make a movie, and that if you wanted to audition for this movie to be an extra, to be over in Halstead, Kansas on such and such date at such and such time, and sign up to be an extra. So my friends and I, of course, we were in all the plays in high school, so we were all movie fans and loved the stars. So we went over there and we got chosen. A couple of my friends and we got selected to be extras, and I got to know William Holden and Rosalind Russell and Kim Novak and all the stars that were in the movie Picnic, and that movie takes place in Kansas. I traveled to Halstead, and then the house scenes of the families were in Nickerson, Kansas. So I traveled there. Lake scenes where we're in swimming suits and swimming, that's over at Sterling Lake. And then, of course, the grain elevators were the big grain elevators over in Hutch. Got paid $5 a day. I was only 15, but my parents let me do it. I had to get my first Social Security number then. One night we all went to a tavern there in Halstead, and Bill Holden came in, and I got to dance with him, and it was really fun. So that was my 15 minutes of fame. I got to be in a movie.
And we've had a great deal of fun as a married couple. We have many of the same values.
When we work together in the same department, it really, you really get to know each other, and I knew he was a good guy. But I asked him 3 things. I wanted to know how he felt about women's rights. I wanted to know how he felt about his religion, his spirituality, and I wanted to know what political party he was. And he answered all 3 perfectly. So I said, well, yeah, I think we can go to lunch. At our advanced age during there, we were like 60s, early 60s. I just didn't have time to retrain another man, you know. I didn't want to fight that fight again. I wanted us to be on the same page because I knew it would be easier to get along. So he answered them perfectly, and I thought, yeah. And I already knew what a great guy he was, taking care of his wife and his mother and father and his only child, and I knew all those things, but I wanted to know if we could be on the same page with these other issues that I sure didn't want to fight about or argue about, and he was, and so it worked out great. We've been married, be 19 years in June. I told him, I sent him a card, and I said, I'm going to marry you someday, right? But I didn't know that, you know, and then I did. So that's kind of a surprise, but he's just a real honest, stable.
Boring.
No, not boring at all.
Because I'm much more introverted than she is. But I think that works in our favor, marriage-wise, because I have no problem, well, I shouldn't say turning her loose. I have no problem with her taking off and doing her thing. That's very comfortable to me.
Realizing that life is so tenuous and life is so precious, and if we're going to be together, we're going to need to make the most of what time we have. And I think that really kind of solidified for me the fact that I wanted this man to live, and he's been sick so much. He's been in the hospital at least twice a year, if not more, since our 3rd year of marriage. And I think knowing that we might not have each other made me grow more in wanting to love him and be with him and take care of him, and he's my best cheerleader, and I don't want to be without him. So you're the only person that has ever, except my mom, you're the only person that has had my back full time. Everything I do is wonderful and beautiful and perfect, and it isn't, but he thinks it. I mean, he makes me think he thinks it is, so. Well, I met these women individually years ago. Some of them years ago, some of them more recently, but there was just an instant connection with all of them. And we all became friends long before we became the tribe. Now we are the tribe. And where that came about was
During the last election, we were all Hillary supporters. We valued each other's opinions. We valued what we each considered important in life. So we just stayed together, and now we get together regularly. This group, we try to get together at least once a month, and sometimes we get together with husbands and significant others too. It's a great friendship, and I am so lucky to have these ladies in my life because they mean a lot to me, and they make life really rich and wonderful.
This is called Jay's Playhouse, and when my present husband Dick and I downsized, we didn't have any place for all this, and I wasn't about to get rid of it. So we downsized from a really big house to this little 2-bedroom house. So this was a tool shed, and Dick thought this would be a great tool shed, and I says, no, this is going to be my playhouse. So I latched onto this, and my grandson Chris Decker, he painted he insulated, drywalled, painted, laid the carpet, and he had never done anything like that, but he did it for me, and Leah helped him, and then I moved all my stuff in, and everything in here is just things that I love. So yeah, this is pretty representative of me. There's a lot of artwork which I love. There's my point shoes over there. Those were the last pair of point shoes I had. Probably, last time I wore them probably was 1957, so that was a long time ago. One thing in here that's real representative of my life with Dick is there's a lot of stuff from our travels in here, and so a lot of albums of our travels and different things like that lantern up there we brought back from China, stuff like that. So yeah, everything in here. It's kind of chaotic. Does that mean I'm chaotic? I don't know. It's really a fun place, but yeah, everything out here reminds me of my family. I am the grateful and fortunate mother of 4 children. I became a mother when I was 19, so I've been a mother a long time. It's the best thing I've ever done. Can't think of anything more important than being a mom. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. Eric, whom we call Rick, and Angela, whom we call Angel, and Robin and Chris. So they're all grown. And I have 9 grandchildren. Let me try to name them off. Eric, Landon, Colin, Whitney, Carson, Christopher, Carly, Miles, and Bella. There we go. That's all 9 of them. 3 great-grandchildren. Talon lives here in town, and Caleb and Harrison live in San Antonio. So I don't get to see them very often, but I love them all, and I'm real close to all of them, and we spend as much time as we can, a lot of time together. We try to get together all together at least once a year, sometimes more. It's kind of hard now that everybody's married and living in different states and scattered all over, but we have a really good time when we're together, and I'm so proud of them. I can't think of anything better I've ever done in my life, and I'm real close to all of them. So, and to my family, I just want to thank you all for believing in me, loving me, putting up with me, going on this journey of life with me. I wouldn't be where I am or have had as much fun if it hadn't have been for my loving support of my family, my parents, my sisters, and my children. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I just couldn't make it without you. And this is a fun day today to show you this film and what the Mac College students have done with it, and they've been wonderful, and I hope you're proud of this, and I hope you're proud of me, because my children are just the best in the world, and I love each and every one of you, all all of you, all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Jay loves you the most. I am very, very lucky. I have a great circle of girlfriends that are very important to me, and some I've known for a long, long time, and some are fairly new. But we all have the same goals and interests in life and how to live life, and I'm just very lucky to have this circle of friends. I am the luckiest woman in the world. I have a fabulous family who support me and love me and take care of me and worry about me. But I also have this circle of girlfriends and some guy friends too that really have enveloped me and put their arms around me and taken care of me and loved me through everything. Dick and I have been through a lot of health issues this past year or so, and I've been taken care of by them. It's just, I don't even have words to say thank you anymore. I'm just the luckiest woman in the world. I want to thank Layne and Scarlet for being wonderful videographers and interviewers and just great human beings and good friends. We're going to be friends forever. And I'm so happy I met them. Wish I'd met them their freshman year, but glad I finally met them when they're seniors. So thank you so much for your time and your effort, and it's been fun. Thank you.
Okay, I hope y'all enjoyed that. That was awesome. Wow, I love that. Okay, and thank you everybody for watching. I want to thank Becki and Nathan and Julia and my classmates and my teammates and my friends in the back. Thank y'all so much for the support. And Layne, you were honestly like the best partner I've ever had. So thank you so much. All right, thanks.
That concludes our presentations. Again, please help yourself to some refreshments, have some time to congratulate our seniors for finishing, greet our partners, and celebrate with us their time and their legacies that they've shared with us. Thanks so much, folks.